Recording, Robin?
Yep.
We are. Excellent. In that case, as we begin our One World worship, looks like more than 50 households at the moment. It's great to see you, and I'm going to hand over to Liz to begin us properly.
Well, it's so nice that so many of you are joining us this evening. So welcome and thank you for tuning in with us. So you've already gathered. We in the room, Robin, Kate, myself, Tony and Louise. And it's really good that you're joining us today. Some of you have already commented. You recognise the room that we're in. It isn't the chapel. When we led our One World worship last time, we realised that the sound was so much better in the quiet room. So we thought we would give it a go and try and do the whole of the One World worship in the quiet room today. So that's why we're here. And we're hoping that for the sound reason, and that's why we mute you for some of this, just so that it's easier hopefully for you to hear us when we're doing some of the talking. And as has already been said, we are recording. Hopefully, by staying with us, you're happy to be recorded, and that might mean that sometimes your picture comes up and your voice. So just so that you know that that's happening. We've got our cup of tea all ready for after One World worship. It's already in the room with us, so hopefully you will be able to stay with us after One World worship for a bit of a chat and a cup of tea. It'd be lovely if you can stay on for a bit. And thank you so much to everyone who has sent us in response to the request in our latest newsletter to send in names of those that you would like prayers and thoughts for, and also some of the learnings that you feel that you've learned through the COVID lockdown, and we'll be weaving these through our worship together this evening. So I'm going to light the candle. Not with that match, I'm not. Never worked with matches.
Me too.
That looks more like it. A bit of tone.
As Liz said, some of you sent us, and some people not with us this evening, have written in and told us some of the things that have struck them, some of the things they've been learning during this time of lockdown. Now, Liz is going to include some of those later in things she's saying, but I thought I'd share some of the ones that she's not including. So here we get just a little taste, entirely random selection of some of what the people in our wider community have been experiencing over these past few weeks. Somebody says, even when feeling isolated from family and friends, we're so lucky to have family and friends to look forward to returning to and seeing and meeting up with. That's made me pause and take stock. Somebody else, I've learned something of the difference between isolation, loneliness, and solitude. And somebody wrote in and said, one thing I've learned, the world's 25 richest billionaires have gained nearly $255 billion in just 2 months from stock exchange fluctuations, I think, at the same time as jobs, small businesses, and livelihoods have been trashed. in an entirely contrasting, very personal way. Somebody says, I've learnt to grow in love for C. We don't know this person's full name. I've learnt to grow in love for C, whom I was blessed to meet up with just before lockdown and who now shares my life and my home. Through this lockdown time, I so appreciate the wonderful gift of my guide dog, Flora, someone else says. Our walks in nature to pray, past a few people, distancing, having a quiet chat, quietly observing and breathing in the healing life force given by nature. Such a gift to have all this thankfulness to give out to a suffering world. And somebody else just says, I've learned that the time with my family and being in nature makes me happier than anything. Then I guess a lot of us have been doing quite a bit of reading, and one person's chosen to include that. She says, I've learned from Sean Stillman's book, God's Biker, which I was given for my recent 74th birthday. It introduced some of the folk on the very margins of life, along with the deeply held and purposeful Christianity that the God's Squad bikers offer on a daily basis to those in need. Halfway through this book, I was already embarrassed by my own need for a safe view of those on the margins. But I was humbled by Sean's testimony of what beauty God has hidden in human brokenness. We've had a guide dog already. The loyal companionship and loving, funny presence of my sweet crackers dog, Dottie, having definitely provided solace with the challenges of isolation as a single person. And she deserves a shout out. Shout out for Dottie. Someone else, I've learned more about myself, more about others I know, more about others I don't know. Positives and negatives to all of these. And finally, despite all, we are very blessed. One of you, actually one listening now, Paul, if you've got your headphones working, sent me words of a hymn. This is new words that somebody's put to a hymn that was written back about 90 years ago, I think. With some slight tweaks from the version Paul sent me to make it fit our situation even more. I thought I'd just sing a couple of verses of that for you. You'll recognize the tune. I cannot tell how we can be together when all our ways of doing so are lost. How we can be one body in community if every form of touch comes at a cost. But this I know, we're sealed upon the heart of God. The Spirit dwells within to calm our fears, and Christ finds ways to show his face to all of us, to share our hopes, our mortal longings, and our tears. I cannot tell how long this time of dread will last, if there'll be months or years of damaged lives, or when we'll once again be free to gather, to laugh and dance, to hug and play and kiss. But this I know, we're finding things both good and true about ourselves, each other, and our world. So after this, we'll know we've met our darkest hour, and that the love we've known within it is pure gold. Thank you, Paul, for that song. Some of you may be surprised to see Louise Heatley sitting with us here. But maybe you have been able to take or are going to take advantage of the change of guidance that allows people to be in a bubble while Louise lives alone, and she's now part of a bubble with those of us in the small household of Othona.
Yay!
Because she lives in Bridport, and under normal circumstances would be here very regularly as a friend and volunteer. So we're delighted. This is the first day we've actually been able to welcome her actually into the house with us here, and even have a hug. Yeah. So I'm going to ask Louise now to read a prayer. It's one you may already find slightly familiar, and after that Liz is going to have some reflections on it.
So it's from this book, When I Talk to You, by Michael Lunig. We simplify our lives. We live gladly with less. We let go the illusion that we can possess. We create instead. We let go the illusion of mobility. We travel in stillness. We travel at home. By candlelight and in stillness, in the presence of flowers, we make our pilgrimage. We simplify our lives.
Thank you, Louise. I'd like to take just a few minutes to reflect with you now on the experience of lockdown. We've all had our lives changed during the last 3 months. We've heard from some of you over the past weeks who've been busier than ever, working in the caring professions, for example, or in supermarkets. Others have faced weeks of isolation, including those still needing to shield at present, whilst the majority of us are now able to meet with family and friends. And as we've just seen, single people can bubble with others. And some of you, like us here in the core community, and 25% of the working population in this country, have been put on the government furlough scheme. We have been paid, we are being paid not to work. So many different lockdown experiences are represented in the group gathered together this evening. And through the newsletter, as we've already mentioned, we invited you to let us know what learnings have been going on for you within and arising out of your lockdown life. So I'd like to offer some of what I sense I'm learning alongside some of what you have shared with us. Louise read that prayer, we simplify our lives. And this was a prayer that we had in chapel one morning, right at the very beginning of lockdown back in March. And it struck some deep chords with me. We knew quite early on that we were going to be put onto the furlough scheme. And on the one hand, I really warmed to the invitation of this prayer to let go and to go deeper, to embrace the stillness that seemed to call me, and to put down the burden of my own expectations about how a driven life is normal life. On the other hand, I was aware that I had real mixed feelings, for I felt quite anxious too. The prayer says, we live gladly with less. But I had not gladly let go of our offer of hospitality and shared life to visitors, to you, through our events, all of which lie at the heart of our community and our reason for being. I experienced painful disappointment when I realised that we were going to have to shut our doors and cancel our programme, to contact all those who'd already booked and tell them they couldn't come, to have the lovely new showers and loos, but no one, apart from ourselves, to enjoy them. And they are very nice. It would be really good when you can enjoy them. I was aware that some of that anxiety that I had arose because of the questions that came into my mind. If we can't do what we are mainly here for, then what are we about? Or even, who are we now? Who am I now in these uncertain times, with no idea of what might lie ahead in the future? Big questions rising to the surface about identity and purpose. And some of you have shared deep reflections of your own with us, and thank you so much for that. One of you, who is used to living alone, nevertheless found themselves having to reinvent how they behave and even think and feel. They've experienced lockdown as a bit like an extended retreat in which they've been offered the chance to discover a deeper authenticity, a way of being that is true to who they really are, without having to worry what everyone else is thinking. Another person has learnt more about love, with the words of Jesus coming to mind. Love one another as I have loved you. And this sentence from James Finley: love protects us from nothing, even as it unexplainably sustains us in all things. Someone else has faced questions around death. The discovery they have made is an understanding that although the thought of death is scary, there is a beginning beyond this ending, that our loved ones, our loss, are birthed into a place where love is like the air that we breathe, and where there is healing and wholeness. And this can be a thread of gold in the dark cup that we carry. And what about Othona? Imagine that as a community before lockdown, we were on a train speeding along full pelt, and then we had to jam the brakes on and bring it to a complete standstill. We found ourselves, as many of you have done, stepping out into new territory. So what have I learned in this changed landscape? One of the important things for me has been the discovery of the vegetable garden. I didn't know where it was before then. I really didn't need to look far. My half of the lodge where I live looks out over the veg patch. But whilst the Othona train was going at full steam, I hadn't found the time or the interest or the inner space needed for tending it. I've never actually grown anything to eat before. And as a complete beginner, I'm truly grateful to Kate and Gavin in particular, as they've planned out the beds, got the polytunnel repaired, and especially for the way that they have enabled the rest of us to join in regularly with the growing of food for our table. In our new circumstances, my feeling is that tending the garden, as we don't have visitors to tend, has become an important part of our deepening sense of being a community together. For me personally, I'm particularly proud of the sugar snap peas, having helped plant them out at the start of their life and building their climbing frame. And we have enjoyed 3 each so far. We hope for more. I've also taken on the early morning watering, and I'm valuing so much being in the garden at the start of the day, with a slight cool in the air, and for most of May at least, the sun shining. Have we ever had such a spring? And I have found these words: written by the poet E. Cummings, on my lips regularly. I thank you, God, for most this amazing day, for the leaping greenly spirits of trees, and a blue true dream of sky, and for everything which is natural, which is infinite, which is yes. One of you writes that you have learnt the healing power of silence and birdsong, and I would echo that. The garden has been a big factor in helping me to slow down and let go. As another of you mentions, I've never had such a long time away from work, but instead of hating it, I've come to love the slow simplicity and freedom of each day, and the time to just simply be. Some of you may remember that as part of last month's One World Worship, we sang Lem Sisse's song, How Do You Do It, Said Night. And that's proved helpful for one of you who says that the following words from the song have been constantly on her mind. Keep it simple, one day at a time. I hope and pray that lockdown will continue to be eased safely, and that at some point, not too far off, it will be possible for us to open our doors and invite you all back in. We have missed you. As some of you have expressed, however, I shan't want to leave everything about lockdown behind and forget it all. The garden and the learning I have gleaned from tending it are just some of the things that I want to bring with me into whatever the future holds for us and for Othona. We simplify our lives. Amen.
Thank you, Liz. Now we're going to experiment and see if we can do all of us. How many households do we think we've got tuned in at the moment, Robin? Is it easy to see?
Not sorry, second. 54.
Well, great. So 54 or more of you out there and us here. We thought we would like to do what Othona people have been doing since the community began, which is using the simple medium of our names, our own names. This will be familiar to many of you, but perhaps not all, as a way of celebrating this community at the moment in its widespread network form, of giving thanks for each other, praying for each other, cherishing each other by name. Normally, if we're doing it just sat round in the circle in the chapel, we all say the name of the person that we're focusing on. Today we do it differently. So in a moment, Robin's going to unmute. In other words, give you because she's controlling the Zoom at the moment, she'll be altering the controls so that for the next few minutes, you will have the option, if you want to, when you want to, of, with the controls on your own computer, your own tablet or whatever, unmuting yourself so that you can speak. We'll begin simply by the five of us saying our names, and we'll know that as we say our name, we're the person that all of you are holding in your hearts. And then after the five of us, for as long as it takes, let's hear as many of you as wish to just say your own name. Now, because you don't know when somebody else is going to start speaking, yes, there may be times when there's a little bit of a traffic jam, but let's not worry about that. And when it feels as if most people have had their say who want to name themselves in the circle of love, then I'll bring that to a close. And then we will share some of the other names and the particular prayer requests that have been sent in to us. This is just a moment to name yourself to unmute yourself when the time comes and choose to say your name. We'll begin with the 5 of us here. So, dear friends, we dedicate ourselves to each other in the context of this community. We celebrate the Othona community in this particular embodiment right here, right now, right there where you are as well. And we do it by just sharing our names, each one something known and or something also mysterious. Tony.
Liz. Kate.
Robin.
Louise.
Julie.
Judy. Dawn.
Carol.
Margot.
Ian.
Julia.
Gillian and her twin sister Jackie.
And Dottie.
Roger.
Carol.
Pete.
Ian.
Oh, sorry.
Jonathan.
Roger.
Margaret.
Pat.
Linda.
David.
Kevin. Mike.
Ruth. Alison. Karen.
Deanna. Sorry. Go ahead.
Karen.
Deanna.
Debbie.
Wendy.
Ian.
Chris.
Jenny.
Penny. Jean-Philippe. Jan.
Martin from Hamburg.
Paul.
Audrey.
Paul.
It's down here, isn't it?
I don't think they're muted actually.
Anne. David.
It's just a system,
Yeah.
I think.
Maybe almost everybody. If there's somebody else who wants to say their name, please do it now.
Yes.
Remute.
God, mine is working. Paul. Paul.
Jen. Roscoe.
Try again. Paul.
Thank you, everyone. I trust you can hear me now. Please wave if you can. Sorry about that. That was just a little hitch during the changeover. Thank you. We retain that prayerful intent. We move now from the names of the people present, attending, participating today, to people we've been asked. These are the prayer requests that were written in to us. Some of them came from some of you people out there, and some of them include some of you are named in these requests. So let's begin by remembering the people of this Othona community in its widest sense, especially everybody at home who's been joining us day by day in spirit during our morning seed times in chapel. And also the 10 people who are locked down together at our Bradwell Centre in Essex.
My brother, Don Rogers.
Should say when we say my, sometimes we're just quoting, this is what we've been asked to say. It's not Kate's own brother. Also, we've been asked for prayers for Joy Andrew. She's 99 and has currently just come through coronavirus. She lives in a care home that's riddled with it. I love it a bit, and it saddens me to think she won't understand why her two main visitors, her daughter and me, aren't coming to see her anymore. She has dementia and can't retain information.
Please remember my mum, Kathy Ford.
Rab, whom I've never met before, but who lives at the bottom of my lane. And in the early days of lockdown, he took the trouble several times to knock on my door and asked if I wanted anything from the local shop.
Tom Wayne and his mother, Carol.
Bruce, a very troubled man living in Western Australia, and his mother, Joyce, a very committed Christian living in London.
At the One World Worship, I'd like Joseph to be remembered.
Could you pray for my cousin David? He caught the virus whilst in hospital and has now been sent home, having been told he has got cancer and they can't operate.
Heidi Walker, who's just undergone major surgery, and her daughter, Julie.
My son, Chris, he works as a carer for adults with learning difficulties. The care staff undertake all the cooking and cleaning in addition to personal care for the clients. There have been no day services for those clients who normally attend them to go to. He's worked throughout COVID, on some occasions doing 60-hour weeks to cover staff absences, sometimes due to staff with children having childcare responsibilities. This has made me aware of the complexity of tasks that care workers undertake and additional skills which have to be learnt rapidly. On a positive note, the home has provided food parcels for the staff on a couple of occasions.
Isla Beard from Bridport, who passed away peacefully on 28th of May, aged 93 years.
Please mention Andrew Micklewright, the father of my 3 grown-up children. He was diagnosed with Alzheimer's in his mid-50s, and now, even though he hasn't yet reached retirement, he lives in a care home on a permanent basis. He was a superb carpenter by trade, who created many fine kitchens using recycled wood. Of course, we haven't been able to visit him recently. It was his birthday on June the 4th.
Sonny Arthur Coleman, whose wife Jean died in April. Sonny is in his 90s and has also had the virus.
All musicians, artists, actors and creative people whose talents coronavirus has separated from us.
Jessica Fox, a children's nurse now working on an adult ward because of the virus. Al Fitzjohn, who has had another eye operation, and Sandra, who is still having treatment in hospital.
The Reverends Avril Taylor and Sheila Dawson Campbell. Avril is in a care home in Shrewsbury with dementia and other serious health concerns and is said to be deteriorating. Myself and her lifelong companion Sheila haven't been able to see her for the past 8 weeks or to hug her for over 3 months. It's heartbreaking.
Gerald and Phyllis Matthews.
Mary, who virtually lost her home in the floods in March. It'll be a year before she can return. She's now lost her 55-year-old daughter. Pray for Mary, her son and granddaughters and son-in-law.
My parents, Margaret and Philip Carter.
Emily Owen, aged 19, who took her own life after warning more people will die from suicide during this than from the virus itself. In memory and in honour of all those who have died in this way, from all ages and all walks of life, and whose deaths are not published by the Office of National Statistics, perhaps because it's not as politically convenient as daily updating us on COVID deaths. Thoughts especially for the families of these people.
Mark, who's waiting for a test to confirm COVID or not.
David King, who has died from the virus.
Very sadly, our youngest daughter, Frances, has been diagnosed with cancer and will be going for palliative care daily. She's found lockdown hard as she's had previous heart surgery and wasn't allowed to work. She's brave, caring and determined and will be greatly missed. Her 4 older sisters are wonderfully supportive, phoning from the United States and Australia, and now she is home, I am close enough to drive over and take my turn.
Jane Kersley, a friend with 2 major problems now.
My oldest friend, Sally, who's just lost her sister Juliet, and my son Hugo, who's struggling with uncertainty and finding a path in his life.
My brother-in-law, John Bradbury, who died of COVID-19 on Tuesday.
I am thankful for my newest great-granddaughter, born on Tuesday to Ben and Kat. She doesn't yet have a name. Also, thoughts and prayers for Verity and Michael and for Caroline.
Please pray for my daughter Katie, who is facing a prison sentence and is homeless at the moment.
For Pauline, recently widowed, who's unable to see either her son or her daughter and her grandchildren.
I am thinking of all the people, especially the young, with social phobia, who are finding it fearful to venture out again after what has actually been for them a time of relief.
Ian Farley, who lived in West Bay until recently, and now has a new home in a remote part of France. I think he must be quite lonely sometimes.
And finally, I think this person may be watching, Roscoe, who isn't quite 3 years old, seems to have written in an email to me this. Could you please mention my mummy Jill during the service? It's her birthday on Monday and she won't be able to celebrate with anyone in the usual way. And I don't yet understand what the fuss is all about, to be honest, but she will be having a bit of time alone in the morning when I go to a childminder. She usually works, but is taking the week off. As she said, she has run out of puff. I don't understand that either, because I still have plenty of puff. Thank you, Roscoe. So we bring our prayers for that widened circle to an end. Just a few moments of silence together, and maybe somebody else that you are naming in your heart who's not been named out loud. Amen.
Amen. So, in the recent newsletter, you would have received the words of the song that we're going to finish One World Worship with today. It's to the tune of Ode to Joy, Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. Hopefully some of you at least have got the words in front of you, and even though you won't be able to hear everyone, it just wouldn't work if we unmuted everyone, because of the speeds of the internet are different for everyone. But you'll be able to hear us, which hopefully is a good thing. So do join us in singing these words. So the first and the third verse and the chorus were written by Pete Seeger. And our very own Tony Jakes has created the second verse to sort of make it really fit with our situation at the moment. So, here we go. Build the road of peace before us, build it wide and deep and long. Speed the slow, remind the eager, help the weak and guide the strong. None shall push aside another, none shall let another fall. Work beside me, sisters, brothers, all for one and one for all. Save the planet, tend the garden, seed and harvest joyfully. Slow to anger, swift to harden, this is how we're called to be. None shall push aside another, none shall let another fall. Work beside me, sisters, brothers, all for one and one for all. We know no one is an island, and divisions bring us pain. But what unites us is far stronger, so united we remain. None shall push aside another, none shall let another fall. Work beside me, sisters, brothers, all for one and one for all. I'm going to blow out the candle.
So, thank you everybody. Thank you for tuning in. It's not goodbye necessarily yet, because we're going to have a cup of tea now, and this is a chance to stay on and chat. We'll keep the line open for about half an hour, probably, as long as we're still talking on, actually. I will mention that next month's One World Worship is likely to be on Sunday the 12th of July, not the first Sunday in the month. As this time, it'll probably be the second Sunday in the month. There'll be more information about that nearer the time. And no doubt Robin's going to tweak the computer again shortly so as we can all hear each other.
Yeah, well, everybody can unmute themselves when they wish.
Can.
But are you closing this part of it now?
We're now closing this
All
part.
right.
Yeah, the recording can cease. Yes.